All right, so it's 6 o'clock on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. I'll call the meeting to order for our second budget meeting for Adelaide Metcalfe Council for the 2021 budget. I'll ask members of council if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Okay, seeing none. So for tonight, we have three presentations. The first one's from Morgan Calvert, our acting township manager, and that's for the administration budgets. And then we have Shannon Black, our chief building official for the building department, and then Chief Aaron Nordoff for the fire department. So I'll hand it off to Morgan to go through the first presentation there.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. I'm just going to load up this presentation. I guess just as a quick summary, last week we went through a couple of budget presentations from both the clerk and acting treasurer Jen Turk, and we also heard from Coulter Cahill, the public works manager, on the roads budget. Today we're going to go through administration, the fire department, and the chief building official or the joint building service. If council has any questions, please don't hesitate to pause me or put your hand up. I'll try to watch both the presentation and the screen. So we'll just get right into it. So today I'm going to present to you the administration budget. Within the administration budget, it contains quite a few things. So one of the things that we'll be talking about is the additional COVID-19 money that we received from the province. So we got another $18,000 from the province to offset some operational pressures in 2021 related to COVID. We also received about $65,000 again from the province in 2020 last year to offset some of our supply costs. Within these two budget amounts or dollar amounts, we will end up applying the $18,000 to the administration budget. So that will reduce the administration budget a little further than what you see in your budget package today. We're also proposing to transfer, so that original $65,000 from the province was transferred to a reserve account. So we're proposing to transfer $15,000 from that COVID reserve, so to speak, to handle the $15,000 in COVID supplies that you see in the administration budget. We do have a legal budget of, I think it's about $50,000. That looks to be appropriate for some of our anticipated projects that are coming up. Of course, this one can be unpredictable given the nature of legal matters throughout the year. Our insurance budget line item has increased by about 13.5%. Most municipalities in the area are seeing about 17%. We also have Tony from Frank Cowan and Catherine from, I believe it's HSM Gen or HRM. They will be attending the council meeting on February 16th. So if council has any questions with regard to the insurance proposal, that would be a great time to ask those questions. Another line item, we have computer support. This represents our costs to the county for IT services, plus some minor software that we are looking at purchasing throughout the year. Some of the capital costs related to that software will come through the municipal modernization program grant that we received in 2019. I think we still have about $208,000 left in that reserve. Moving on, because again, we're not anticipating a lot of travel in 2021. We're proposing to reduce the current budget of, I think it's about $2,000 in that administration line item to about $1,000. The consulting and engineering, it's currently at $25,000. We're proposing to reduce it to $10,000. This budget is really required for any engineering we require to be done on behalf of the township for things like drainage or site plan control. In the current training budget, we have about $1,500, proposing to lift that up to about $4,000. And this is it relates to a conversation that we've had with council quite a few times with regard to training and development of staff. So we're really just trying to increase capacity and capabilities of our team. The salary and benefits portion reflect the new compensation grid, including pay equity adjustments that we uncovered through 2020. And I just want to take council through a quick organizational chart. This is a quick glance of really what the township looks like in terms of the number of employees, what shared services we have, and how we're leveraging resources through contracted services, for example. So within the administration budget proper, we have one full-time CAO, we have one full-time clerk, we have 0.5 of a vacant treasurer position, we have one full-time financial assistant, and we have 1.5 full-time administrative assistants. Within Public Works, we have a Public Works manager who is full-time. We have two people doing the landfill operations, but really it's the equivalent of about 3/4 of a full-time equivalent. We have 4 full-time equipment operators. We also have a drainage superintendent, but that is a shared service with Southwest Middlesex. We have a fire department that consists of a number of volunteer firefighters. We have a part-time fire chief, and we also have, I'd say, a quarter of a full-time equivalent fire inspector. In the Joint Building Services Department, we have a full-time CBO with 2 building inspectors and a 0.5 FTE of an administrative assistant that's currently vacant. And then the other services that we receive planning services from the county via the municipal levy. And then we also have that IT shared services agreement that gives us access to very specialized IT folks. So that kind of wraps up the administration budget. The next portion that I owed council is a quick conversation on Highway 81. We have a lot to do to really understand what's going on along Highway 81 or the commercial corridor of Center Road. We're proposing to leave the Highway 81 budget as is, but plus the capital costs that we owe to Strathroy Caradoc for upgrades to the water and wastewater system. The servicing agreement with Strathroy Caradoc is absolutely a priority for the township in 2021. We need to work towards a new one that will better articulate things like the relationship, revenues, expenditures, billing, rates, service provision. We have other questions around infrastructure. So we have a lot of work to do along Highway 81 in 2021. The one big cost that we're looking at is about $971,000 to Strathroy Caradoc for that water upgrades. We're looking to debenture this one over a 20-year period, which gives us time to be able and opportunity to be able to look at really what's happening on Highway 81, understand what's happened historically. I struggle with what's happened in the last 17 years because I haven't been here. So I just need some time and opportunity to really take a look, get my hands into Center Road and really understand where some of these things are coming so that I can figure out where we're going. Outside of that, just quick opportunity for some questions.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Is there any questions at all from members of council? I'm not seeing any quite yet, but that was a lot of information, and council didn't have the time to go through the presentation beforehand. Is there any questions at all before we move on? Okay, seeing none. Morgan, I'm sure we will have some questions for you because that Highway 81 is a big question there as to what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Mayor, through you to council, as always, if council has any questions through the week until we get to our next budget meeting, just send them along. I'm putting together a quick questions and answers document so that, and some of the questions that I'm receiving are very specific. So I'm trying to generalize them a little bit, and then I'll provide an answer to that question. So if council has any questions, I'll circulate the presentation. Jen's going to post it on the website and as part of the council agenda. And then we can just go through it.
Excellent. Councillor Brody, you have a question or a comment?
Just a comment. I think when we'll start making some more comments when we actually get to line items when we start in the budget. This is just more of an overview, right? So.
Morgan, just to that, are we going through line by line of the budgets, or will it just be generalized questions?
So what I was hoping to do is really just give council an opportunity to understand the department budgets, really where we're going, how we got there, what staff are proposing. And then at the third meeting, what we're going to do is take what we've heard from council in the last 2 meetings, adjust the budget a little bit, give you another version of that budget, and then we go line by line.
Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I had forwarded questions since the last budget meeting, and mine were more line by line. But I think as we're going through this process, I think the first meeting now, in hindsight, it was more of a general overview. And every time, like we're drilling down a little bit more and more each week. And I would just encourage people to forward their questions as I have, and then hopefully they'll all be addressed as we go. Because even the council meeting last night, a little bit, or the night before, whatever day it is, a few answers came out to some questions along the way. So we're moving in the right direction.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to move on to the next presentation then. So Shannon, like to present your building department budget or presentation.
Absolutely. You can go to the next slide, please, Morgan. Thank you. I am Shannon Black. I'm the Chief Building Official for the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe. And through the Joint Building Service, I provide services to Southwest Middlesex and the municipality of North Middlesex. So the building department's role and responsibility is the enforcement of the Ontario Building Code and the Building Code Act. And in the Act, it also includes property standards. So in addition to that, we also do commenting on various planning applications, site plan control, subdivisions in the neighboring municipalities that we provide services for. So that's pretty much an overview on what we do for the municipality and the township. Next slide, please. So in 2020, Adelaide Metcalfe saw permits pretty much on par with previous years. In total, there was 85 building permits issued, which generated a revenue of $75,000 for the building department. Next slide, please, Morgan. So in review for the whole joint building service, I came on board to the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe in June. And then through the service agreement, the other 2 municipalities appointed me as the chief building official in July, which saw me take over the role there as well. And then in August, we hired 2 inspectors to assist with plans review and inspections. Since the start of the joint building service of me coming on board in July, we've issued over 150 permits, collected over $200,000 in permit fee revenue for all 3 municipalities, and performed close to 1,000 inspections. And then again, staff attend weekly meetings with various stakeholders, department heads, development teams, and ratepayers to assist with and provide comment on current and future developments within the joint building service area, as well as answering general building and planning and zoning questions. Next slide, please. So for 2021, the budget is a little bit bigger than what it's seen in previous years, and by bigger like pages as well, because we've broken down sort of exactly what the budget is going to be and tried to provide correct and allocate proper funds in order to operate the department and provide the joint building service correctly. So the joint building service is still in its infancy, and we are all learning a great deal of what is working and what is not working and where we need to improve. So that is also reflected within the 2021 budget. In 2021, will be a year where we continue to assess the service and ways in which we can improve for all parties involved. Again, we kind of have to ebb and flow based on where the construction and development is occurring. So again, in some municipalities, they're seeing more development where others are not. So we sort of have to pull back from the ones that are not, and then give more service to the other ones, while trying to maintain the level of service to all 3 as required by the building code, the Act, and by the joint service agreement. So unfortunately, we do not know the impacts of COVID and what they will have on the building community. However, currently, we have not seen a huge downward slide of construction. And due to the fact that we are in various stages of development on specific projects, as well as what we've seen coming through for future development, there appears to be a continued steady development that will occur for the joint building service area. Next slide, please. So some of the proposed changes that you will see in the budget is that we are still trying to complete the fee study. So that will be completed in early 2021, which the intent of that will be to ensure that the joint building service can be a cost recovery user pay service within the service area. The Building Code Act allows for municipalities to recoup the costs through the fees of the service to offset the cost to provide the service. So the intent of doing the fee study is to ensure that that's more in line, to not have to rely on tax dollars to support the building department. Also, there's been a line item in there, which is to budget for one of the service users has a municipal vehicle, a truck. So the intent is to bring it into Adelaide Metcalfe's ownership. However, it will be a shared cost by all three users to bring that over, as well as the ongoing maintenance that would have to be, and licensing and billing, or sorry, licensing and fuel would also be shared as per the agreement. So we will also continue to implement the shared service through the review of the current agreement, as well as deploying staff time and resources where they are needed most. And we will continue to review options for permitting software that will allow more efficient application and issuance of the permit process. It's important that while we're looking at an option for software, that it is user-friendly for all of our ratepayers and developers that will need to use it from all three municipalities, as well as to ensure that it will be able to speak to the other softwares that we're currently using, as well as provide the required reporting and inspection notes and permitting software, or sorry, permitting applications that we need in order to better service the people using it, developers, builders, homeowners, and that's all I have, and I would be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
All right, thank you so much, Shannon. Is there any questions at all for Shannon in the building department? Doesn't look like there's any at this time. So thank you, Shannon, for the presentation, and I'm sure we'll have some questions for you for our third meeting. Fire Chief Nordoff will hit into your fire department budget presentation.
Hey, thank you. You can go to the next slide. So this is reported by myself. So the mandate or the mission of the fire department is to protect life and property in the township of Adelaide Metcalfe. And along with that, we do provide mutual aid for surrounding municipalities as well. Next, please. So for 2020 in review, there was $375,000 was transferred out of reserves for the purchase of a new rescue truck, which was ordered in May of 2020 with the delivery date of mid-February 2021. And last year, there's no money spent on conferences or conventions due to COVID-19. Training expenses were lower by $3,859 because some courses were canceled due to COVID-19. Truck repairs and fuel was down because of lower call volume due to COVID-19. A grant from Enbridge was received, and those funds were allocated towards the purchase of a new self-containing breathing apparatus. and a fire inspector was hired part-time in December. Next, please. So the new rescue that was slated to arrive in May of, or is slated to arrive in May of 2021, delays to COVID-19. Originally, it was supposed to have been in February, mid-February, but there's a delay in the receiving the chassis, and then there was some COVID in the plant where the truck is being built. So there has been a bit of delay, but it is on track again now, and we expect it in May. And it'll be paid out of reserves, which was transferred in 2020 for that purpose. Truck repairs in the operating budget needed to be increased to $20,000 due to some problems with engine one. And I spoke to this at our last council meeting. Snow clearing budget needed to be increased due to new service provider and was included in the sidewalk clearing tender. And there may be some unforeseen events due to COVID-19 in 2021 that could change the actual numbers, similar to what occurred in 2020. There's a lot of unknowns yet. Next slide. And I'll answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Chief. Is there any questions at all? I can't tell if we're scrambling to look at pages or if we're thinking, no, okay. Oh, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, was that where you wanted to say something? No, okay. Alrighty. I don't think there's any questions right now. We did go through those presentations quite quickly, and since we're all here, I know that Morgan, you have received some questions from members of council, and I'm assuming some other questions maybe from the public, I'm not sure. So maybe we can go through some of those to bring some clarification, and then hopefully that will stir a conversation for different items in the budget.
Yeah, for sure. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the rest of council, I have about, say maybe about 15 or so questions that have been received. So what would you like me to do? Read them off and then provide the answer, or?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. So
yeah.
So one of the questions that we received was about the foreman and would this position be appointed from the existing team? So I'll look to Coulter to help answer this question, but I have formulated an answer. So Coulter, if you want to augment it or tell me I messed up somewhere, you just let me know what I need to do. But currently it's budgeted as an additional full-time equivalent for the roads department. During the winter months, the public works manager is on the road from 4 a.m., noon, and 4 p.m. doing road patrols. Equipment operators are unable to complete this work, the road patrols that is, as they have likely already been on the road to remove snow. Each plow route is about 6 hours. The public works manager's time is currently split about 70% outside and 30% inside. So I think we've talked about that before. With the addition of the Kerwood wastewater treatment plant being the Aqua agreement, the drainage superintendent shared service, the focus on asset management, the Kerwood Park improvements, the public works manager must refocus his work allocation to be closer to 70% in the office and 30% out of the office. The foreman is really to alleviate the added duties of the public works foreman and to get him in or the public works manager and get him into the office. We can look towards existing staff for the added responsibilities, but that will shift the resource constraints to another employee. To alleviate this constraint, we can hire a temporary worker through the 2021-2022 winter season. Temporary workers do present its own set of challenges related to recruitment, being attraction, and then of course retention. So if this is the strategy that council would like to consider, then what we can do is really remove about $30,000 from the budget today so that we can work towards an internal succession plan or hire of the foreman. and then also have enough monies remaining to handle the winter season through casual workers or temporary workers. Now, of course, the winter season is still fairly unpredictable. We don't know when we're going to get snow if we don't get any. So there is still that little bit of uncertainty within this strategy. So Coulter, I'll leave it to you to add or remove anything I've said there.
No, I think you nailed it, Morgan. We struggle a lot in the wintertime now with all the new duties coming to this position. The public works manager, just even this week, we have to have one of the employees off Friday because he'll be working too many days in a row, so he has to take a day off. So if it snows on Friday, which it's gonna on Thursday night, I'll be in a snow plow. So that is hard this time of year with budgeting and then tendering, quotes, asset management, everything that comes in the wintertime. This is basically our busy time of season in the office. So it's hard to be out of the office as well doing road patrol. So I think you nailed it, Morgan. Winter times for sure. It would be nice to have another body. Summer times, equipment operator. We're always lacking an operator, especially with some of the construction projects in the future. But at the same time, I'm really focused on winter time right now, trying to alleviate some of our guys of their hours. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Morgan and Coulter. The one thing I will add, and I think Morgan, you hit it at the head of the whatever that term is. Shannon's laughing laughing at that one. Anyways, really the public works manager that job description has really changed from back in the day where you would call what Coulter's doing now. That job used to be the road supervisor, and now it's the public works manager, and it covers a lot more than just roads now. It's drainage, it's parks and rec, the Kerr wastewater treatment plant. It's a lot more than what it was, and the job is really changing. So I think it's a good reminder to the public that there's a lot more on that Coulter's plate than there has ever been before for that position. So I saw Councillor Brody, you had your hand up, and I think a few other ones were up as well. And I'm going to try to figure out that phrase about hitting the head in the nail, something like that. I forget what it is. Mike.
Yeah, just a comment of, what some people don't probably understand is we have 4 trucks, 4 employees. There is a lot more. We are regulated on hours worked, hours of service. You can't sit in a plow truck like you used to 10 years ago for 20 hours a day and hop back in it the next day. We are limited to hours, liabilities that way. So if somebody needs a day off on a Friday, you're short right there. There's a truck that's parked. It may not happen every day, but the days it does, you're in trouble. So if you, like you said, Coulter, if you get a weekend snowstorm, guys are out of hours and they can't work the next week. It's the same in the trucking industry. The rules have changed. So that's where, some ratepayers probably don't understand that as much, but that is reality. And that is what we have to live with today. We just can't have the same guy in the same truck the whole time.
So, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, I think your hand was up.
Yeah, I think the idea of just moving somebody up and relying on casual help, I don't think is really a wonderful plan. I think we need some consistency, and so I like the approach of going for a foreman. We have lots of other duties. It's like we've said, it's a lot more than just being the road super, and I don't like the idea of just trying to find help here and there, and when you need it, it's not a good way to plan, I don't think.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hendricks. Is there any other comments on this at all? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I was the one that actually raised that question. So, and it wasn't because I was disagreeing or agreeing. I just think it's important that the public has enough explanation around it to be able to justify it, because that line item is a big jump year over year, but we also had pay equity in there and some other issues. So I just think it's important to have that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark, for that question. So, Morgan, do you want to jump to the next one, or is there any other discussion on this at all? I don't think there is. So, Morgan.
Okay, so the next question we had was, do we plan to retain 2 landfill positions after we are out of COVID? So the staff response is the township has a working alone policy. Having 2 individuals at the landfill follows the policy of the township and ensures the safety and well-being of staff. This is a permanent part-time staffing complement to operate the landfill. So going back to the organizational chart, this is really the equivalent of 0.75 full-time employees. So then the other thing just to note is that the fees, we have to do a review of a number of bylaws, including our fees bylaw. So this fees bylaw will be reviewed in 2021 by the incoming treasurer.
Okay, Councillor Brody.
Just kind of a question / comment through you to Morgan. That extra person is a very part-time dollar amount. I mean, it's only 9 months of the year where it's open 2 days a month, and 3 months a year it's only 1 day a month. So the total cost of having a second person there for safety or anything, like some days it's lined up pretty good, really doesn't cost us very much money. So maybe you could attest to how much it is, but I feel that it's not very much money.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Brody, if you give me about 30 seconds, I'll be able to pull up the salary and benefits that are associated to that one. Didn't realize I was on mute there. It's about $20,000, 20 to 25,000 if you factor in benefits and salary of the landfill operators.
Is that that'd be for both, correct?
For both, yeah.
Okay, is there any other questions at all for this one? Okay, seeing none.
So the next question that we got was about the Aqua agreement or contract. What's it worth and why did we budget for $50,000? So the annual contract is worth about $36,000. After that, consumer price index gets applied year over year. And then there's labor rates that are included to respond to alarms or weekly maintenance. And then of course that rate changes between about $65 and $90 an hour, depending on the skill set that's required to resolve the issue. During the spring and fall, when we have high levels of groundwater from rain, the alarm will sound pretty much weekly, and the maintenance pumps get plugged with wipes, so they do require extra service calls. So that's where the $50,000 budget came from. Is we're just anticipating that about $14,000 of labor or maintenance will be required to wrap the Kerwood water treatment plant. Beyond that, Coulter, I just ask if you have anything else to comment.
No, again, Morgan, I think you nailed it. All that extra $14,000 in there is just to offset the costs if we do get emergency calls. So, you know, it could be as low as 40 and as high as 50, most likely. So somewhere in that range.
The only other thing to note is that we had to bring in Aqua because we had some compliance issues within the Kerwood wastewater treatment plant. And we had essentially a pending order from the Ministry of Environment. So we had to respond in this way so that we can resolve those compliance issues.
Thank you, Morgan, for that. Councillor Brody.
Through you, Mayor Smith, just a comment too. I think this, when you look at the budget sheets, all of a sudden, yes, there's $50,000 there, but the 2018, 2019, all those actuals had $0 for wages, which really wasn't the fact. There was wages from Aaron's position that are now that he doesn't have, but some of his wage did go to this before. So to the taxpayer, it may seem all of a sudden it's 50,000, but really there should have been, if the wages were properly allocated, there probably would have been $20,000 or $25,000 there as it is. So I think that's a thing that some of the ratepayers aren't really seeing. They're just saying, oh wow, it's $50,000 more all of a sudden. But that kind of truly is not the case. It just wasn't allocated there properly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think at the time we had the fire chief, the chief building official, and also the roads supervisor were all included in that setup there at the Kerwood wastewater treatment plant. And you're fully correct. There was no wages set aside and allocated to that budget. So is there any other, Deputy Mayor Hendricks?
Yeah, I think I heard somebody say clogged with wipes, like we could spend a little bit of money on communication. People should not still be throwing stuff down the drains that they know can't go through a septic system. It's maybe spend a little bit on communication to the people who use that service, because until we're completely use or pay, the rest of the township has to pay for their own mistakes. So I don't like paying for those too.
That's a good idea, and you could probably put some notice in there with their next tax bill or something.
Coulter.
Just to add to that, it has been communicated to the residents in Kerwood many a times. I think Jen, you can attest to that. We will still keep communicating with the residents, but at the same time, people make decisions that you're not there, right? So, but we are trying.
Okay. Is there any other questions at all in regards to the offer agreement or anything else for the wastewater treatment plant? Yeah, Councilor Brody.
I have a couple comments, but I want to wait till we get into the reserve portion and a few things. So I'm good for now.
Okay. Okay, Morgan, do you have any other questions you want to go through?
Yep. So we have another question. Why the increase in cemeteries, as previous years were 40,000 and the increase was 14,000? So the staff answer is it's hard to advise what will be spent, as it depends on the number of burials or maintenance required: fence, headstones, maintenance to trees caused by complaints from Mother Nature. This project or this projection can be reduced, knowing that there may be costs above the budgeted amount based on previous year trends. Actuals are not fully representative of 2020 expenditures, as we're still processing year end. So I just want to make the comment that we haven't finished year end, so we don't have our year end 2020 actuals. They're year to date, and I believe the date is, and Jen, maybe you have better, but I think it's November.
Yeah, actually, it'll be the end of October, early part of November. So it'll be the end of November and December that will still have to be accounted for.
So our 2020 actuals are off by about a month and a half.
Okay. Councilor Brody.
So I see in the reserve lines that there is money sitting in there for Goff Cemetery. Now, is that specifically for one cemetery, or is that basically, can we use that across the board on cemeteries?
No,
Jen?
that's strictly for Goff Cemetery.
Okay.
Yep.
The one thing to note about reserves is basically the department, or the way that the reserve got there, is how it needs to come back out. So if Coulter put in $400,000 for road work, then that $400,000 would have to be used for road work and not for cemeteries, for example. Okay. So then the proposed solution to the $14,000 increase in cemeteries is we really can reduce it to $5,000 if council wishes. But again, noting the potential variance based on the year, because this is one of those things, we don't know how many people are going to go into the cemetery or what's going to happen in and around it. So it's just a note that there is some unpredictability to this one. I think the mayor's frozen. So,
so just a comment. We should have a good average though over the last 3 or 4 years. So that number probably can be reduced. We just have to look at it a little bit closer, correct?
Yeah, I would say we could safely reduce it. We're kind of anticipating the high end here. We can average it, and I think that average was about $5,000. So.
I think I'm back. I thought you were frozen, Morgan.
Oh.
Okay, is there any other questions for the cemeteries at all? I think we wanted to. I'm sure we could find a few dollars in there, but not too much to really affect the increase really to the tax rate itself. But I'm sure we could reduce that if we're looking for a few dollars somewhere to decrease the budget.
Well, to be honest, every little bit helps. 1% municipal tax rate increase is worth about $75,000 to the township. So this is one where we can absolutely adjust that. But again, we'll just note the variance to it. And I guess the other thing I forgot to note to council is basically anything that we talk about here today, we'll go and we'll address the version of the budget that you have in your budget book. We'll update it with these changes and provide a variance report to where we've made these changes. So that's based on council discussion and some of the questions. So, and then if you don't like the change, it'll be identified in the variance and we can just flip it back to something. Okay. So on to the next question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Okay.
Parks and Rec shows an increase in grass cutting fees. How come? So there is a revenue of about $500 for land use. This is hay, for hay behind the Kerwood wastewater treatment plant. Actuals are down from 2020 budget. We cut the grass up to and including November 2020 for all properties. The grass cutting contract is based on a per cut or event. It's hard to anticipate how many cuts per year, as this depends on, of course, the weather. Looking at past budgets, these were the same numbers used in 2019 and 2018. So these are historical values being proposed. So again, this budget could be reduced to $4,000 if council chooses, just noting the potential for variance throughout the year.
It really depends on the year with the amount of rain and everything else. It's kind of hard to predict grass cutting really. Deputy Mayor Hendricks. Oh, you're muted.
I think it depends a little bit too on when things can open up. We don't have to cut the park as often, for instance, if people can't hold events there, and if we can't run if the Optimists can't run the soccer program or have the ball tournament, then the grass still needs to be cut, but not as often.
Okay, Councilor Brody.
Yeah, to a point with Marianne's. I don't like. We've certainly made good improvements of the park looking better. We had a real bad grass experience, so I would really hate to go backwards. So I think we better just keep cutting and keep it looking as better as it's been. You're really probably not talking about too many, extra costs really at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other discussion on this at all? Okay. Oh, Councillor Clark, or no? Okay.
Well, so sorry, I'm jumping around here. I'm fading. Landfill, like I looked at the salary and wages and we've only budgeted 7 and you said it would be 20 to 25,000. So what have I misunderstood? Under expenses 6450-8100. Even if I add the benefits in, or are you talking the total? I don't know what's going on.
So the total salary expected is about 25,000 between the two. And it could have just been a missed addition in that budget. Let me take a look here.
Yeah, because we've only allocated 7,200, so there's a bit of a shortfall there. Okay, and I guess those the questions Morgan asked were all the questions I had, so thanks for asking those. Thank you.
Yeah, so Ms. Mayor, through you to council, we'll update that that line item. It just got missed, that's all. Good catch.
Are there any other questions at all from members of council on any of the budgets at all so far? Yep, Councillor Brody.
I guess just because landfill came up, so will we, so in here, the closure, so will Kellum Road at the end of this year, like that'll be totally done, closed, all expenses done with that one?
Yeah, Councillor, that's the plan, to have it completely closed and everything's taken care of and move on from there. So again, we wanted to do it last year, but with the changes, it just didn't happen. Somebody was supposed to do it, so now it's put on to myself and Morgan and whoever else jumps on board to get that done. But we'll get that done this year for sure.
But with that being said, Coulter, with the Kellum Road landfill, will there be ongoing like well monitoring or at all, or is there going to be any expenses going forward for that?
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Just in talking with GHD or our consultant there are going to be no monitoring wells planned there, just because it's a pre-1967, I think, landfill. So there will be annual costs with the consultant showing up, just to give an overview of the whole site, and us whipping in with the roadside grass cutter just to cut the weeds down. That's about all you'll see for annual costs. So nothing crazy.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Clark.
yeah, I'm struggling still with this landfill thing. So even if we figured out, it was $400 every time it was open, and it's open twice a month, that's 26 weeks. That's only $13,000. So that number's, I don't even think 20 or 25 is right. Like there's something off there. Anyway, somebody will fix it.
Yeah, sorry, Ms. Mayor, through you to Councillor Clark. Coulter just shot me a text there. I messed up because I'm looking at the wages for the year where Coulter has the hours in the landfill, and $7,000 is correct based on those wages for the hours at the landfill, where I was looking at the cost for the year.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
That's what I figured would be the case. I assume that you probably multiplied it by your 0.75 or something like that for the full-time equivalents, or yeah.
Yeah, I have a giant spreadsheet of all the wages and stuff like that, and it's based on our pay equity and compensation grid from the previous in 2020, and then what Coulter's done is broken down the anticipated hours, open hours of the landfill.
Morgan, do you have any other questions at all that you received, Morgan, or is that?
Yeah, I got a few more. I got a couple around policing that could basically end up being the same response, which is we're handed our policing budget by the ministry. It's a contracted service with OPP, and there's really not much play in that budget. We're handed a bill and we have to pay it. I had 3 questions about audit and accounting. And again, they were all generally the same. So at the February 16th council meeting, we'll be presenting an appointment report to continue on with auditing services. And it's not going to be much different from what we had in 2020. The only difference would be if we have the auditors have to make additional adjustments. So again, there's some variance in there, but that's just because of the budget or the audits, right? The other question I got was on janitorial services, just looking for a clarification. So the 2020 budget did not include the extra cleaning that's required due to COVID-19. And it was really only for a partial year. So these added costs will be funded through that COVID-19 grant that I was telling council about earlier in the evening. So that will offset these costs. We did have a question about fire department personal protective gear, whether the line item covers existing or new, and it covers both. So you'll see a repair, Chief, it's repair and maintenance for PPE, I believe. And that includes the repair and maintenance of personal protective gear and any new gear that's anticipated throughout the year. The other theme that Jen and I had kind of uncovered when we were going through the budget was that a lot of the GL accounts, not a lot, I'd say probably maybe 10 of them, were either called MISC or weren't really representative of the reason of why that account is used. So example, this one says repair and maintenance of PPE, but new stuff is being pulled out of it. So it should be updated to better reflect the purpose of the thing. So it could be new repair maintenance PPE. We had a question about provincial offenses. So that's just revenue that comes in from things like tickets. We didn't have a bylaw officer, like speeding tickets, traffic act related. We didn't have a bylaw officer in 2020 and they just came in December. So none of those revenues were from anything bylaw related from the township. Highway, we had a question about Highway 81. Sewers was the $28,000 budget as revenue. Is this enough? Again, this is one of those questions that we won't fully understand until we spend some time digging into the servicing agreement and what's occurring on Highway 81. I'd like better control of billing so that we can look at rates and other things. So that'll be part of the servicing agreement negotiations with Strathroy-Caradoc. Another one of the comments that came back was about consulting and engineering on Highway 81. So what was the $20,000 for? Looking through the finance database, again, this is another one of those GLs that should be updated to better reflect its use. But the GL has traditionally been used for sewer charges under the servicing agreement with Strathroy-Caradoc for billing sewers. This GL account will be renamed through budget implementation to better reflect its use. I think that's about it for now.
Okay, Councilor McGinnon, you have a question.
I bet you thought I was sleeping.
Oh no, I didn't think that.
Through you, Mayor Curtis, to Aaron, our fire chief. Will there be a revision on the salary and wages line? Is that reflective of your part-time position now?
I believe it is.
Okay, so that wage line of 188,609 is correct?
I'm not 100% sure, but it is down from last year. So I'm assuming it is, but we can look into that further.
Okay, thank you.
Morgan?
Chief, I believe this line also includes you paying the volunteer firefighters for their efforts throughout the year.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Councilor Brody?
So I guess I had some stuff written down while we're on fire. Just how come there is no CPP, WSIB, anything like that attached for Aaron's wages? That's all basically in a zero column.
Chief, would you like to answer that one, or?
I believe that's included in the, I don't have the number in front of me. What is 188,000 is the total?
Yep.
So all those numbers are included in the 188,000, I believe.
Okay.
If I may, that also includes the inspector, the part-time inspector, does it not?
No, that's a separate line in the budget.
That line item is near the bottom for fire inspections / investigations of about $8,000. And that $8,000 is taking the employment agreement and timesing it by about 20 inspections plus a little buffer, and then we're off to the races.
I would challenge that number then. There must be something off there.
We can take a look at it.
Councilor Brody?
Just another question to Aaron. I had down here for the budget for truck repairs. Now, is that because of the issue from before has to be covered in this year's budget, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Okay. Is there any other questions on the fire department budget since we're on that page right now?
No.
Okay. Maybe Councilor McKinnon.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers and thinking that we're going to be in quite a surplus position, even if we take another month and a half and add those expenses on. Am I off base here, or is everyone kind of thinking the same way that we're going to have a lot of surplus this year?
I think when Jen and I were talking about it, we were looking at it, we do anticipate a surplus. I know even through the roadway budget, we realigned some of those numbers to make more sense. They were higher than they should have been. So if that, even there in that budget alone, we would see a surplus. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Thank you, Morgan.
Okay. So you said, Morgan, you haven't received any other questions prior to the meeting at all?
No, nothing yet.
Anything else? Okay. So I guess I'll look to council as to what we'd like to do. Do we want to, adjourn from this meeting and look over the proposed budget and kind of put all the questions down, and then that way Morgan and Jen and the team can get those answers ready for council for the next budget meeting? Or what are we thinking? Or is there any pressing questions we want to ask right now? Councilor McKinnon?
I think that'll make for a more productive meeting if they can answer the questions, and then we can discuss at that same time.
Councilor Brody?
So one thing I want to bring up a little bit before, because this has to do with probably adjustments to maybe bring the tax rate down, or so basically right now we're thinking, we have some surplus stuff in there. Our proposal right now is a 1.5% increase. So I did a little math today looking at the reserves, and so right now proposed in our budgets, we've got another 293,000 roughly to go into the reserves, and only about 112,000 to come out. So, and I know this has to go to specific line items, but basically at a $4.7 million reserve number, we're going to be adding to that again. On the front page of our budget, if we go to a 1.5% tax increase, is going to cost us $150,000, or we need to get more revenue of $150,000. So this is where I struggle with having an increase at all. We are sitting very, very good in reserves. You know, if we wipe that out right there, we're at a 0% tax increase again, without even starting to nitpick all the line items. I just struggle with adding. I like the reserves. I like the number we're at, but I think if we're not going to start pulling some more out, why are we asking for more of a tax increase? You know, if we have a year where, or a forward year where we're actually going to start about some more major projects, I guess I'm just very comfortable with where the reserves are at now. And I think, why are we going to try to get some more tax rates if we're not going to do anything but increase that number?
Okay. Morgan.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councilor Brody, that's a good financial tool that you can use. We heard from our auditor recently that we are healthy when it comes to our financial position. We will also hear that through our service delivery review finance project later in the month. The one thing that we haven't done yet as staff, and we're leaving it to council direction, is where to apply, or if you wish to apply reserves to lower that tax rate. If that's a strategy that council wishes to consider, then staff can absolutely go back. We can take a look at where those reserves came from, because we'll have to do a bit of a, you know, we'll have to figure that out first, and then where they can be applied, and then we can take that reserve strategy of Councilor Brody's and apply that for the next meeting, so that you can see what it looks like to get down to a 0% tax increase or a 1.5%.
Councilor Brody.
And then just, I think I'd like to have, you know, a little more solid understanding of some of the reserve dollars. Like, I get the working capital, the fire, stuff like that, but there is some on here that seem a little stale. Money's been sitting there, and I don't know if it will ever go anywhere. And I don't totally know the rules on each line item, if some of that can be adjusted or not. I just want a bit of a review of, is some of those line items with some dollars amount, is that kind of a stale number sitting there that if we can move or can't move? I'd like to understand that a little bit better. But back to, again, I just feel at the high number that we're at, without any big capital project, I just don't feel we should be adding more to it and then asking for more tax money.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think it comes down to the philosophy of council and what we'd like to do going forward. It's going to be the $1 million question for council. Okay, Morgan.
Yeah, to Councilor Brody's remark, we already have on the list of the treasurer to look at the reserves and to consolidate some of them, because you're right, there are some that seem to be a little stale, and they can be consolidated through council approval and direction, so we can get our incoming treasurer to take a look at a lot of these things and to start proposing new ways of dealing with these things, and that could be a form of consolidation of some reserves to another and reallocating them to other purposes.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. That's something that just hasn't been looked at in a long time, and I think that'd be a good project for, you know, this year for the incoming treasurer to look at. Would make sense.
Alrighty, so if there's no further questions, I guess the homework between now and the next meeting would be to go through the budget, and if there's any questions, send them off to Morgan, and then that way we can have a full discussion at the next meeting as to with those, and then if there's anything additionally that we want to look at, to go through those. Is there anything else you want to add, Morgan, at all?
Well, what we'll end up working on for the next meeting is we'll take back what we've heard from council through discussion. We'll update the budget as well to handle some of those changes that we've talked about. We'll look at essentially a reserve strategy to get the municipal tax rate down to 0. And we'll show council where some of those reserves can be pulled from safely and properly, I guess. And then we'll present that budget as well. And that'll come with a form of a variance report. So if this line item said it was $100 and we've made it $200 from the time that you guys last saw the budget, we'll highlight that. We'll bring that out so that you can see where those changes were made. And then of course I have a couple questions that I have to get some answers to as well.
Okay, excellent. If there's nothing else, I think, Jen, you asked me for a motion of council, and that is to motion for council to receive the proposed 2021 budgets as presented by the department heads. Okay, so that's just receiving the reports. We're not approving anything, we're just receiving. So we got Councillor Brody and Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, if there's nothing further, Councillor Brody.
I guess just one more comment. So this year, our main projects, like say coming out of reserve funds, would be the fire truck that was already allocated last year, and basically the park. Is that? I'm not missing anything else, am I? Like, so that's basically our main projects for this year, other than the list of roads, which is in the road budget, correct?
Yeah, there's also currently the tandem snowplow that's in there. There's the, it's not really a project, but the money owed to Strathroy Caradoc for Center Road water, wastewater upgrades. And that's pretty much it, plus the road work that's been identified in the road budget.
Yeah, one thing I was kind of pondering in my mind with when Kohler did the road budget, and I think I did mention this before about when it was proposed for Mullaferry for 3 years. I think we really got to look at that infrastructure grant loan money. I mean, interest is at a low, and maybe we could even pull out in a project like that off in a year and defer some payments. I think what we pay in interest would be less cost than having two different phases of construction. I think I really would like to look into that, because that's such a busy road, and to tie it up for so long, I really think we'd save money by paying interest to do it faster. So I think we need to look at a couple things like that for.
Okay, so yeah, I do have that written down to look at different interest rates that we can apply for. I know Infrastructure Ontario has a program. The county also is working on launching its loan program as well. So there's two programs that we could use to take advantage of fast tracking this project. The only nuance I would say is that any capital work we do in 2021 will have an operational impact in 2022. So just an FYI, we know that stuff, but just a heads up.
Yeah.
And we can get that report together for, well, actually, I'm looking at Coulter. We could probably get this report together for the next meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's an excellent point. I think one that I'm assuming Councillor McKinnon probably was thinking about a few years ago when talking about Walkers and Scotchmere and all those roads when we were talking about on the south end of the township, because it's easier to get everything done, especially for the residents along those roads and the farming community. Having a road ripped up for multiple years in a row, it's never fun. Yeah. Alrighty. If there's nothing further, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn, and I'll remind anybody watching at home live on YouTube or later on after this meeting's not live, that our next budget meeting is next Wednesday, which I believe would be the 10th, if I can figure that one out, and it's at 6 o'clock again, Morgan. Excellent. So if we don't see you between now and then, we'll see you on February 10th. at 6 o'clock. So we need a motion to adjourn at 7:10. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor Brody, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you so much.